Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you're all well. Just on the channel Motec here. Good channel, to be honest. Seen a few videos on this channel I've enjoyed. Um, Last surviving member of Admiral Byrd's expedition reveals the truth about Antarctica. Something I've never really covered, but when it goes into the Nazis as well a bit, the Antarctica crack, and I was sort of doing a World War II thing at a time, but um, I've sort of forgot about that in the midst of other things happening. But it leaks into the Nazis, where the Nazis down there, and where they're looking for an Aryan race that lived in the earth, was caught into the crack as well, and they wanted technology, and they went looking for the Ark of the Covenant as well as other things we've discussed. So, interesting subjects, just all interesting subjects, to be honest. And this one here, Admiral Byrd. He will explain who Admiral Byrd is at the start of the video if anybody doesn't know. This guy does a lot better than I do, to be honest, so I'll just let him play a bit of the video.
When a man with a Medal of Honor, Navy Cross, 2-time Navy Distinguished Service Medal, 2-time Legion of Merit Medal, and a Distinguished Flying Cross Congressional Gold Medal tells you that one doesn't equal one, you drop everything you are doing and listen. In the case of this man, he tells us that Antarctica isn't what we know it as. If anything, Antarctica is a thriving continent with people living in it for generations. If he is right, that means everything our government has ever said was a lie. I know they do lie, but this lie would be the ruler of all lies. And then you start to realize that the lies are not the problem, but what they are covering up in Antarctica that made them lie in the first place.
This kind of links into the flat earth theory. The flat earth theory says that we send expeditions down there and there's an ice wall and all that sort of born out of it. And it could be something else. I mean, I don't particularly think the earth's flat and there's an ice wall, personally. I believe this would be more along the lines of what would be happening, that there's something else down there and the earth isn't flat, but maybe it is an entrance to an inner earth. That's another thing, a topic we could cover. Inner earth. Is it an entrance? Is the pyramids there as another crack? Did it not used to be under ice? Has there been a pole shift? All these things sort of link together. Again, I did a video about pole shift the other day, and the Y-Files mentioned it, and all these things kind of link together in some sort of way. So Admiral Byrd there, he was decorated quite a lot, as all the medals shown there. Was a war hero, I believe, an American war hero. We'll just carry on the video, hold on.
Admiral Richard E. Byrd was one of the most decorated officers in the U.S. Navy. He is the only person in history to have 3 ticker tape parades in New York City, one in 1926, 1927, and 1930, given in his honor. He was also one of only 4 American military officers in history entitled to wear a medal with his own image on it. When it comes to accomplishments, authenticity, and awards, there is no one like Richard E. Byrd. But what Byrd was mostly known for was his expedition. He explored places no one wanted to go. You see, Byrd always wanted to be the first in everything. It was like an obsession for him, which could be why he had so many first awards tagged to him, like being the first and youngest admiral at just the age of 41. His obsession with being the first is why he had no problem leading the expedition to Antarctica. From the early 1900s to the early 2000s, he led 5 different trips to the Antarctic. The last 3 of these trips were paid for by the U.S. government.
Last 3 by the US government, so did he find something already there? He's been twice and then the US government's funding it. But as well, once the government gets involved, as we all know, we'll probably be told nothing, and who knows what they're even up to in the first place. So, yeah, 5 expeditions, the last 3 sponsored in effect by the government.
While the first 2 were from his pocket and some believers. Byrd's first trip to the Antarctic took place in 1928, with 2 ships and 3 airplanes. Throughout the summer, trips were made to take pictures and study the rocks, and radio contact with the outside world was kept at all times. Then, during the summer of 1933 and 1934, Byrd went on his second trip and worked alone for 5 months at what was known as an advance base, which was a meteorological station. It was during this expedition that he almost died from carbon monoxide poisoning from a stove that didn't have enough airflow. While all these were great and useful expeditions, Those were not the expeditions that people talked about. The first two were free of any sort of controversies, but the third one wasn't, and weirdly enough, this was when the government started getting involved with Byrd's expedition. From 1946 to 1947, Byrd led an expedition called Operation High Jump, which set up a research base on the Ross Ice Shelf called Little America for Four.
Antarctica, a composite portrait of a continent which has challenged.
If you had 2 cars or more...
No, I haven't got any cars. It's broke. My car is broke. So, rubbing salt in the wound there from their YouTube adverts. Salt in the wound. Hold on.
First, he could sail beyond the limits of his horizon.
There is a picture, and I think it was on the Y-Files, a picture of one of the first pictures. Hold on, I'll see if we can find it. Yeah, so I found it here, and this is here, there. First photos of the hole at the pole. And I believe this was the first ever photo we took from space, was the crack I heard. And it was in effect, that's what the photo was a hole. And this is maybe artists' representations of what the hole could look like here. But I believe this is a real photo, and there was a hole, or whether it was something wrong with the camera, I don't know, but that's apparently one of the first ever photos that we took of Antarctica, and there was a hole there, and then this has all led to like inner Earth theories and all this sort of stuff, and but it kind of goes along the lines of what Admiral Byrd's, what's going to be said here, I believe. So hold on, I'm carrying on.
The Antarctic continent.
World War II had shown that U.S. ships and aircraft were not up to cold weather. Ships that were operating in the Arctic Sea often froze up, and I mean that literally. Planes coming from Greenland and even Iceland crashed just because of the weather. So in response to that, the U.S. came up with a set of steps to make it easier to use these ships and planes under Arctic conditions. At the same time, the U.S. wanted to see if this could be done from a long distance. Operation High Jump would be created to test and find answers to these questions. A naval task force would go to Antarctica as part of a drill to see how well the equipment stood out against the cold. Then, also, map out a big part of it to either claim the land or to satisfy Pentagon's curiosity. And the best person for this kind of job was the fearless and experienced Admiral Byrd. The operation went so well that it got terminated early. It was because of this mission that ships and planes would be winterized in the years after High Jump, so that they could go to war with the Soviets again if one broke out. The most well-known example is how nuclear-capable B-29 bombers were made ready for winter so they could fly from Alaska. All what I've told you so far was the government version of the story, but here is where people started to ask questions. If it was just a drill, why are you going with 14 ships, 33 aircraft, and about 4,700 men armed to the teeth? There were 2 destroyers tankers, 2 heavily armed seaplanes, and an attack submarine all fully stocked with the best weapons in the entire Navy.
Yeah, it's quite a force for a training drill down in Antarctica, to be fair, and he's right.
That was really a lot of equipment and personnel for just a drill. Apparently they needed that number to fight the Nazis in Antarctica. You see, in December 1938, Hitler already knew he was about to start a war, so he was putting things in order and getting help from every aspect, including the ones that people would call you crazy for thinking about it. Imagine being...
Yeah, so when I done the World War II videos, I hadn't really got that deep into it. I'll need to go back to it. But yeah, there was talk of Hitler, and again, the Indiana Jones movie, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and even the Last Crusade, I suppose, they were after the Goblet of Christ, the Cup of Christ, and then the third film. The first film was about the Nazis going for the Ark of the Covenant, and these are believed to be true stories, that the Hitler was looking for artifacts and anything that could help him win a war. He was looking for, and if he could get his hands on them, he would, and tried. Is the stories coming out?
On the brink of war and then sending your troops to go find mysterious ancient artifacts that could be used in your favor. Sounds stupid, right? But to Hitler it wasn't. Anything that could help him was explored. So he signed off on multiple expeditions. One of these expeditions launched on December 17th, 1938.
So before the war, it's 1939, I believe the war started. So he would. It looks like he was looking for some of these things, and this again, he sent multiple trips down to Antarctica, as it's going to say here. So maybe that force from the Americans was to fight the Nazis down in Antarctica. They didn't know how many was there. They didn't know what they'd built, possibly. Reconnaissance and everything wasn't quite what it is today. So maybe it was just that they didn't know how many Nazis were down there.
And the SAS Schwabenland was sent on a secret mission to Antarctica. On board were scientists, engineers, and also members of the Thule Society, which was a German occultist group. The Thule Society had a lot of beliefs, and most of those beliefs were strongly rooted in racism, hurting anyone who was different than them, especially the Jews. But one belief they had was that a highly advanced race of human-like beings called Aryans existed somewhere deep inside the Earth, and the entrance to Aryans' world was at the South Pole. So the classified mission given by Hitler to the SS Schwabenland was to find a location for a secret underground base and make contact with the Aryans living in the hollow Earth. Once contact was made, they were to negotiate for access to their technology so that they could use it in the upcoming war.
Hollow Earth, another inner Earth, another theory. Kind of dismantles flat Earth, to be honest. There's a bit more back into inner Earth, to be honest, than there is flat Earth. Not something I've really looked into a great deal. I'm aware of it. It's like Tartaria, this lost continent of Tartaria. I'm aware of it, but I haven't really looked into it. And again, I'll go through them as well. We'll kind of look through them together and see what you think. Yeah, but there's an inner Earth conspiracy as well, and this links into what's being said here. And into Hitler as well. So connections, but be they true, be they false.
The ship reached the Antarctic coast a month later, and for the next couple of weeks, they mapped hundreds of thousands of square miles of the continent. About 150 miles inland, aerial reconnaissance found what is described as an Arctic oasis, an area of about 300 square miles. This area was free of ice, filled with warm water, and even contained plant life, which shouldn't be. The ocean beneath the oasis was a geothermal vent that kept the area.
Just to get it interesting, does us with an advert. Geothermal vent at the top of Antarctica, and yeah, the story is that there's plant life up there. There's animals, even animals that have gone extinct on our known Earth.
Area relatively warm. This was the ideal place for a base, especially for U-boats. This is where the Nazis would establish the infamous underground facility known as Base 211. Over the course of World War II, Base 211 became a massive complex as large as a small city. Noticing what was happening, the American government was getting worried about this development happening in Antarctica. What's that saying again? Keep your friends close, your enemies closer. And America was going to do that with Operation High Jump. Now, Operation High Jump was supposed to last 6 to 8 months. But remember, I said the mission was cut short because it was successful. The mission lasted just 40 days, and almost immediately everyone was evacuated and the operation terminated. The Navy said it was because winter was coming early and the weather was getting worse, but in Antarctica, February was the height of summer. Their statement didn't correlate with the facts. Remember that they went there in the first place to test their stuff against the cold. If what they said was true, shouldn't the weather be perfect for their test? This was when the conspiracy theories started coming out. Did something happen in Antarctica that made the massive Navy group return to the United States? Probably to reassess and regroup. And what were they regrouping for? For a long time, nobody knew, but all that changed when a diary was found. On one of his routine flights, Admiral Byrd was flying over the South Pole while speaking with the American public over live radio being relayed by the Navy to listeners. This was like watching your favorite influencer talk or share their experiences. However, during the broadcast, Byrd was cut off from his radio monologue for nearly 3 hours. No one could hear him, not even the Navy. This was a problem. No one knew where Byrd was or could communicate with him. It was after Byrd released his diary that we were able to see what happened in those 3 missing hours.
And this is where it gets interesting. Nope.
We are crossing over the small mountain range and still proceeding northward as best as can be ascertained. Beyond the mountain range is what appears to be a valley with a small river or stream running through the center portion. There should be no green valley below. Something is definitely wrong and abnormal here. We should be over ice and snow. To the port side are great forests growing on the mountain slopes. Our navigation instruments are still spinning. The gyroscope is oscillating back and forth.
Byrd had stumbled on a place he couldn't explain. Antarctica is one of the coldest places on Earth. Warmth and green, fleshy plantations shouldn't exist. To even sound more confusing, Byrd talks about not seeing the sun anymore, which was worrying for him because he was having problems with his navigation system, so he had to resort to using the sun for directions, and now he can't find the sun.
The light here seems different. I cannot see the sun anymore. We make another left turn and we spot what seems to be a large animal of some kind below us. It appears to be an elephant. No, it looks more like a mammoth. This is incredible. Yet, there it is. Decrease altitude to 1,000 feet and take binoculars to better examine the animal. It is confirmed. It is definitely a mammoth-like animal. Report this to base camp.
He tried to radio in, but the radio was not working, and that's when he saw it.
Ahead, we spot what seems to be a city. This is impossible. The aircraft seems light and oddly buoyant. The controls refuse to respond. My God! Off our port and starboard wings are a strange type of aircraft. They are closing rapidly alongside. They are disc-shaped and have a radiant quality to them. They are close enough now to see the markings on them. It is a type of swastika. This is fantastic.
Now even I don't know what he saw. Was it an alien? Was it an ancient civilization? Was it actually the Aryans the Germans were looking for? What was it? Byrd's radio finally starts to work, and a voice comes through speaking English with a Nordic or Germanic accent. The voice tells Byrd that they would help him land, and he shouldn't worry, that he's in good hands. This was during World War II, so hearing anyone talk with a German accent about you trusting them was like trusting the devil for a blessing. But Byrd couldn't do anything or run away. The engines on his plane stopped working and were under some strange control. It was driving itself and even landed safely, all by itself.
Several men are approaching on foot toward our aircraft. They are tall with blonde hair. In the distance is a large shimmering city, pulsating with rainbow hues of color. I do not know what is going to happen now, but I see no signs of weapons on those approaching. I hear now a voice ordering me by name to open the cargo door. I comply. End log.
Byrd was taken from the aircraft and boarded on a small platform-like conveyance with no wheels and into the city. Byrd was in awe of what he saw. A city made of crystal materials that made it very beautiful. He was then taken into a large building, and it was there he met the one known as the Master.
I see a man with delicate features and with the etching of years upon his face. He is seated at a long table. He motions me to sit down in one of the chairs. After I am seated, he places his fingertips together and smiles. He speaks softly again and conveys the following. We have let you enter here because you are of noble character and well known on the surface world, Admiral. Surface world? I half gasp under my breath. Yes, the Master replies with a smile. You are in the domain of the Ariani, the inner world of the Earth.
Byrd was shocked. If what the Master just said is true, that means everything we've ever known about our universe and Earth is wrong. Let me take a moment to explain why this is mind-blowing. There is a theory known as the Hollow Earth theory. Some people heavily believe that there was and probably is an opening to the center of the Earth. In the 1690s, English astronomer Edmund Halley told the Royal Society of London that he thought the Earth was made up of stacked spherical shells that spun in different directions around a central core. Halley thought that the space between the shells could have conditions that supported life. In the 1810s, American officer John Cleves Sims added to Halley's idea by saying that those spheres could be reached through holes in both the North and South poles. Some believers say that this place is home to aliens, Vikings, ancient cultures, and even Nazis that were trying to escape the Allies. They also claim that Adam and Eve from the Bible were banished from the inside, and the lost tribes of Israel migrated from the outside to the inside. And of course, you don't know of this because it has been debunked by numerous governments, but if what Byrd said and stumbled upon is true, then that means we've all lived a lie. The master told Byrd that he meant him no harm, but he wanted to talk to him because Byrd was a respectable person whose opinion matters in the surface world, which was true. The master then tells Byrd the reason for intercepting Byrd's plane was to give him a message to tell the surface world about the war going on. The atomic bombs over Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan, were a cause for worry for them. The world had not seen something like that before. It was alarming for them that they had to risk exposure and send their flying ships to investigate what had happened. Surprisingly, this tallies the numerous accounts of eyewitnesses of UFOs that were recorded during that period. And weirdly enough, they are mostly seen in nuclear plants that could be used for nuclear warfare, in which later, the plants will usually report that something just stopped working or the plant was sabotaged, like in the case of the Solway Firth spacemen. This is a weird thing.
The Solway Firth spaceman was more a rocket, and yeah, we've covered that one. Good, all these mysteries and conspiracies and tales. I do enjoy them. I don't know about this one there, and them saying they knew who he was, and they knew he was Admiral Byrd. That kind of makes me disbelieve it, you know what I mean? How would they know who he was if they live on the inner Earth, and how would they know he was a big thing on the outer Earth, you know what I mean? Doesn't really... that makes me doubt it, to be honest. Like, it's more like a tale that Admiral Byrd's made up than glorify himself, you know what I mean? But this is the tale as it stands.
To think or say, but it's weird that we've not had a World War III. Not that I am praying for one.
Well, it could be pretty fucking close to that, to be honest.
I love peace, but knowing how humanity likes division more than unity.
Child, I went from...
Yeah, we're probably heading for a shitstorm. Kind of looks that way, to be honest. And yeah, we'll probably have to fucking deal with a third world war. The dove of peace is fucked around this way, it would seem.
It's weird. So maybe we owe these people our lives. The master keeps talking about how they have to intervene because mankind has learned to tamper with certain powers. Our emissaries have already delivered messages to the powers of your world, and yet they do not heed. Your race has now reached the point of no return, for there are those among you who would destroy your very world rather than relinquish their power as they know it. The dark ages that will come now for your race will cover the earth like a pall, but I believe that some of your race will live through the storm. Beyond that, I cannot say. We see at a great distance a new world stirring from the ruins of your race, seeking its lost and legendary treasures, and they will be here, my son, safe in our keeping. When that time arrives, we shall come forward again to help revive your culture and your race. Perhaps by then you will have learned the futility of war and its strife.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know the futility of war and its strife, and none of us want war, you know what I mean? None of us want war.
And after that time, certain of your culture and science will be returned for your race to begin anew. You, my son, are to return to the surface world with this message. After Byrd was given the full
I mean, that could be fucking right, to be honest.
Message, he was escorted out of the room and soon arrived back at their aircraft and were escorted out of the Crystal City. As soon as they left the city, a radio message came through. We are leaving you now, Admiral. Your controls are free. Auf Wiedersehen. And that was it. Byrd was confused about what just happened. Finally, his radio was working and the Navy could reach him.
So they said Auf Wiedersehen, German, like were they just the Nazis, and but who knows, you know what I mean? It's a crazy tale, to be honest, and I don't know how much truth's in it. I'm sure the Y-Files will probably have a video on this, and the Y-File's very good at the end of telling you whether it's true or not, if there's any truth in it. It seems a bit far-fetched to me, and I've never really been a massive fan of the inner Earth in terms of there being a big hole and you can fly into it, but there maybe is... I mean, there's some place in Turkey called, what's it called? Begins with a C. Cappadocia, I think, in Turkey. It's like underground city in a way. I'll do a video on that sometime as well. That's very interesting, but I don't know if I'm for the inner Earth conspiracy, to be honest.
On March 11th, 1947, after the expedition was cut short, Byrd attended a staff meeting at the Pentagon where he was debriefed, and he let everyone present know what he saw and the message he got. After this debriefing, Admiral Byrd was detained for several hours, 6 hours 39 minutes to be exact. He was interviewed intently by top security forces and a medical team. He was placed under strict control and was ordered to remain silent about everything he saw or heard at the Crystal City. He was reminded that after all, he was a military man and must obey orders. Their plan worked because Byrd hardly gave an interview after Operation High Jump. He was always watchful of what he was saying. But Byrd writing it down in his diary and it being released after his death was him having the last laugh.
But it could also just be a story you made up and put in his diary. That's the other side of it. I'll leave it there. There is more to this video if you want to go and watch it. Another 4 minutes. He maybe tell you whether it's true or not. I'm going to leave it up to your interpretation. But for me, I'm touch and go on it, to be honest. Well, I'll do a video on the inner Earth and see what kind of evidence there is for the inner Earth crack, to be honest. I've seen plenty for it, but I've never really been one for believing it as such in terms of a big hole in the North or South Pole. But like I said with that picture, apparently that's one of the first pictures we got, and there was a big hole there. So I'm like everybody else. We're just learning, you know what I mean? We're learning. We're trying to figure all this out. So I'm not the expert on nothing, to be honest, and I never claimed to be. It's just a learning curve, isn't it? Like learning about everything, the megaliths, the history, the Bible. It's, you know what I mean. It's all just one sort of big subject of history, and try to learn it and piece it together. But who's to say who's right as well on some of it? That's the other side of it. Some of it's theories. So got to do best you can, piecing it all together best you can, and believe what you want, I suppose. And I'm touch and go on this one. It was written in his diary, but doesn't necessarily mean it's true. It could be a story he wrote, you know what I mean? But he did go missing for 3 hours, and apparently there's more to it, you know what I mean? So it's up to yourself. If anybody in the comments knows any more factual evidence about it, then put it in the comments, and maybe there is more to it than I believe. But from that alone, I'm not convinced personally. I'm not convinced. I'm not saying it's not true, but at the same time, I'm not saying it's true either. I'm not personally convinced from just a tale, and everything within there is possible, I suppose. A city, whether it be made of crystal, you know what I mean, and talking about wars and because it's, I mean, humans have wars. We know this, so not really told anything particularly any revelation, if you know what I mean. But humans will have a war. All right, well, we know that. So yeah, but I'll leave it there, people. See what do you think of Admiral Byrd's expedition and his tale? So I'm not convinced, but maybe there's more evidence for it. I don't know. Peace.